Maybe your wife said something to you last week or earlier this week that was really bothering you, and you never addressed it. And you don't want to bring it up now because you don't want to rock the boat, but it's still eating at you. It's still bothering you. Guys, that is agitating you. I mean, I gave you a bunch of examples, but just pick one and do it today. Just commit to doing one. You don't need to do all 10 or 20 or however many on their list. Just do one of those things. Men, today I'd like to talk with you about the perils of self-betrayal. We're going to talk about what self-betrayal is. We're going to talk about the consequences of self-betrayal and how it manifests in your life and why you might feel that way, whether it's externally or internally. But most importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do to not only overcome the concept of self-betrayal, but I think more importantly, the anxiety and fear and anxiousness and agitation and impatience that tend to manifest as a result of self-betrayal activities. And then also I'm going to share some additional resources for you. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it today. What is self-betrayal? Self-betrayal is knowing that you need to do something, that something needs to be done, a conversation needs to be had, an activity needs to be engaged with. Maybe it's a to-do list. Maybe, like I said, it's a conversation. Maybe it's a certain behavior or action that you are engaged in that you should not be engaged in, or that you should be engaged in. And anytime you have this thought in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, and you don't physically act upon it, that is a form of self-betrayal. There are a lot of reasons for this: outside factors, influence, manipulation, and there's some internal factors that are going to be present as well. And we're going to talk about that. But at the end of the day, guys, you really need to be aware of what you is telling you. Now, I say you because there's a lot of factors. It's our logical, rational, thought processing side of our brain. It's our heart, or more often, or maybe more appropriately, your emotional side, which is telling you how you feel and intuition and how you should take these things into consideration that you may not be able to explain logically why you might feel that way. I think there's something to be said for that. And then there's also the soul. And I would say that is derived from a higher power, from God, or from however you choose to look at it, some higher entity and being that is working with us, that is working on our behalf, that is advocating for us, that is giving you ideas and thoughts and insights that maybe you just would not have come up with on your own. So they're coming from a lot of different places. There's a lot of different ideas and insights and intuition and emotions that we feel and experience. And I think as men, we ought to tap into all of that. Commonly, at least in modern times, but probably throughout human history, men have been told, maybe it's better than it's ever been, in fact, but traditionally men have been told that we don't take into consideration the way that we feel, that we don't take into consideration this sixth sense that we might have called intuition, or the guidance of the Holy Spirit. You might choose to look at it that way. But I think that's leaving resources and assets and tools on the table. And why wouldn't we? Why shouldn't we tap into every tool at our disposal to help us perform better, not only for ourselves, but for the people that we have a responsibility for, and also the people that we care about? So I've really dived down the rabbit hole on this concept of self-betrayal because I know that every time I'm feeling frustrated or agitated or anxious or impatient, even if I'm directing that towards my kids or the people that I love, or I'm just internalizing it, it's a direct result of self-betrayal in some way. So what are the consequences then of betraying yourself, of having that intuition and having that feedback and having those logical thoughts and ideas and concepts and not acting on it? And to go back to what it is, I've often talked about this concept that I call the integrity gap. It's the gap between what we know we ought to be doing and what we're actually doing. That's the integrity gap. And in order to bridge that integrity gap, you need to overcome this concept of self-betrayal. So how does it What are the consequences? Well, obviously, inferior results in your life. If you're not doing what you know you should be doing, you're going to be overweight. You're going to have poor relationships. You're not going to be able to communicate effectively. You're not going to get the promotions that you deserve. Or you're not going to be able to influence people in a positive way, your friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, neighbors, etc., in positive ways to lead them effectively. You're going to be dissatisfied. You're going to be unfulfilled. Are these triggering any thoughts for you guys? Do you feel like that? Because if you do, I can tell you right now, without even knowing your specific situation, that there is some self-betrayal happening. And it's hard to confront that because it means that you might need to have a difficult conversation or that you might risk ruining a relationship or a career pursuit or a relationship with a client even because you're being honest and true to who you are. But I'll tell you, in the short term, you might lose some of those things. You're going to lose some battles. You're going to lose some skirmishes here and there. But in the grand scheme of things, the more true we can be to ourselves and the more that we can avoid betraying what we feel and believe and think, you're going to win that war. And you're going to make good moves. And you're going to live a more fulfilled life. So how does this manifest then? If we know now what self-betrayal is, and we know what the consequences of self-betrayal are, how does it show up? And how do you know, without having to think too deeply about it, if you're betraying yourself? And we'll get to that. I'm going to share with you here in a little bit the specific things that you can do, very actionable steps that you can do right now, today, that are going to help you overcome the concept of self-betrayal and make you feel so much better about yourself, and in return, produce those results, the relationship of your dreams, the business that you've always wanted, the financial acumen that you've desired, the promotion that you feel like you deserve, the body that you've dreamed of. So I'll give you those here in a second. But first, I want to tell you that I know what you're feeling right now because I feel it too. Every single day I feel one of, if not more, of the things that I'm about to share with you. And again, I'm self-aware enough to know that if I'm feeling those things, it's like the dashboard on your car. You're driving down the road, maybe you're going on a trip, or maybe you're just heading into work, and that little check engine light comes on, or the engine temperature gets too hot, or whatever it might be. And your heart sinks a little bit, and you wonder what's going on, and you wonder, man, is it the transmission? Is it the engine? How much is it going to cost me? And so what do? Well, some people just ignore it. In fact, a lot of men just ignore it, just like we do with our health and other issues that we might be facing. But it's only going to get worse if we do that. So what should you do? Well, you should probably pull over if it's a serious issue. You know, if you see smoke coming out of your engine compartment, probably pull over. Maybe it's just you're out of gas and so you just need to go to the gas station. Or maybe it's something more serious, and so you take it to the mechanic, and the mechanic diagnoses it. He runs his little computer program and his diagnosis tools or whatever it is that he does, the secrets that they do behind closed doors we don't know about. And he tells you what's wrong with it. And then you can decide, do I want to fix that or not? I've got a couple of alerts that have come up on my truck, and I think one is a low tire pressure on one side. And actually, I think that's all that it is, a low tire pressure on one side. I brought it in. The guy said, the sensor's bad. Do you want to replace it? And I asked him how much it was. He's like, he told me how much it was. I said, no, thank you. Is the tire good? Is everything working correctly? He's like, yeah, everything's fine. The sensor's low. Well, I can deal with that. And so I made the decision not to worry about it. But if it was something more serious, then I would worry about it. Now, how does this translate to your life? Well, if you start to feel the things I'm going to share with you right now, that's the little check engine light coming on saying, hey, something's wrong. We're not supposed to be experiencing this. We're not supposed to be feeling this. And I'm not telling you that it's wrong to have these feelings. I'm saying if they come up, especially if it's chronic, that there's something deeper going on in your life that you really ought to be aware of and address. So what does it look like? Well, it's anxiety. Your heart's racing, you're fearful, you're guessing, you're not able to focus because you're worried about whatever this thing is. It could be anger. Maybe you're more agitated than normal. Maybe the slightest thing sets you off. Maybe your kid says something, maybe they backtalk a little bit. Normally you'd correct and discipline, but this time you decide to yell and scream and shout and berate or belittle them. Okay, that's an indicator that there might be some self-betrayal happening. Maybe it's impatience. You know, you get home from a long day at work and the kids are jumping all over you and they want your attention and they want to go play baseball and play a video game or have dinner or whatever it is they want. And instead of addressing those things and prioritizing them, you blow up and you isolate yourself because you can't deal with it anymore. Maybe it's just frustration, that you just have this overwhelming sense of not knowing what in the world's going on and just being slightly agitated and feeling as if you could do more and you're capable of so much more, and yet you're not doing it. And so you beat yourself up and you critique yourself and you criticize and you exacerbate the problem. And then it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you start to manifest that in real life through your results. You know, you get passed over for the promotion, or the relationship starts to break down that was going good otherwise. Or, you know, you make a bad financial decision and it cost you and your family important financial resources that you needed. If any of these things are happening, and if multiple things are happening, I'm telling you right now, it's probably self-betrayal. Now, there are other things, okay? There are other things that might make you feel that way. There's external factors and there's internal factors. So the external factors are things outside of your control. So for example, you're driving down the road, the check engine light comes on, transmission's shot. Okay, that's an external factor. I mean, maybe there were some things that you could have done about that with regular maintenance and lubrication and things and just being aware of it, sure. Or it might just be that your truck's 25 years old or 20 years old and the transmission needs to be replaced. Okay, if it's external, there might not be any form of self-betrayal going on, but it's still important to address what it's coming from. If you get passed over for a promotion that you think you should have received, that may not be necessarily a form of self-betrayal. It could just be that somebody with better experience, a better resume, came in from inside or outside the company and they got the position over you. You didn't necessarily betray yourself, but it's still going to cause some frustration and anxiety and maybe even depression and agitation and impatience. It's going to cause those things. Or a relationship where, it's not working out and that's going to cause some anxiety for you. Or, one of your kids breaks their arm when they're playing at recess. Okay. Like, obviously I would be stressed out and agitated about that too, because I don't want to have to have them hurt. I don't want to have them in pain. I don't want to have to take them to the hospital. I don't want to have the cost associated with it. And so that would agitate me. I would not be agitated at them unless they did something stupid. But it's just part of life. Those are the externals. And it's important to know, are the frustrations that you're experiencing in life coming from external or internally? Internally is much more devious because it's hard to tell sometimes. And we have a great ability to fool ourselves, to convince ourselves that the internal issues are actually external issues you have no control over. So what might be an internal issue? Well, it could be that you need to have a difficult conversation with your wife, but you're so afraid to have that conversation that nothing ever gets addressed. Your wants and needs aren't being met. Her wants and needs aren't being met. And now all of a sudden, both of you are frustrated and agitated. And if left unchecked, it can begin to spiral into a breakdown in a marriage. It could be at work that instead of doing all of your work every single day and being diligent towards what you need to do, you've been slacking off because you're frustrated about that maybe relationship. And now you're taking it easy at work and you're coasting and you're not really doing your work. And so you get home and now work is spilling over into the walls of your home, which makes the relationship worse. And the relationship with the kids becomes fractured. These are internal issues. They're things well within your control. When you're at work, you can be busy, you can be effective, you can be productive, and yet sometimes we choose not to be. And as long as we're intentional about it, I think it's okay in the right context to say, hey, I need a break, I need a pause. I did that yesterday. I was hammering through a bunch of emails yesterday. I got through like 120 or 130, and I'm like, man, I just need a break. And so I ran outside. I work at home, and I went and took the trash out and put it in the trash can and just walked around outside for a minute, got the sun, got the warmth, and then came back in and got right back to work. That was deliberate. But I wasn't slacking. I was taking a deliberate break in order to just get a little bit of recharge to hammer through the rest of the emails I needed to get through. But all too often, we're not doing it deliberately, and we're not doing it intentionally, and we're sitting on the toilet too long playing video games when we should be making sales calls. Or we're ignoring the red flags that come up in the relationship because we don't really feel comfortable having that difficult conversation and what it might mean. Or a conversation with your child. Or maybe even helping your child read or get their schoolwork done. Or maybe they're dealing with a bully at school and you need to have a conversation. Or maybe they ask you an uncomfortable question about sex or drugs or pornography or any number of things that kids have a great ability to ask at the most awkward and random times. And instead of confronting it and dealing with it and being honest with your child, you kick the can down the road. Oh, that's cute. Laugh a little bit, chuckle awkwardly, and then shoo them off because you don't want to deal with the questions they're asking. Or maybe you know you need to go to the gym or get a run in, and you don't. You sleep in. And you might say, well, I'm just big boned. My family's built this way. But you've actually never really given you a chance to see if that's true. Or you want to eat well, and so maybe you did some meal prep and you've got your chicken and your rice and your vegetables all lined up and you've got them all set aside, labeled in Tupperware in the fridge, ready to go for each week. And instead of taking one of those out of the fridge, you decide to go with the boys at lunch to Chili's and chow down on the double, onion cheeseburger and fries and whatever else. I mean, I've done it. I'm not pointing fingers, but we just need to be honest about our decisions. So there's the internals and there's the externals. Now, the interesting thing about the externals is that in a lot of cases, we think they're external. For example, we got passed over for the promotion. But the reality is that if we focused on the internal more, the external is much more likely to play out in our benefit. So again, let's say you got passed over for the promotion because that guy had more credentials or he had more experience or he went to a couple different little training courses that you didn't go to. Okay, what would have happened if over the past 5 years, instead of slacking, instead of thinking everything was okay, instead of being comfortable and complacent with your life, you decided to be more assertive in your work, knowing that, hey, promotions and opportunities might arise and I want to be prepared for those things. So that training that my company is going to pay for, yeah, I'm going to do that and let my company pay for it. When I'm sitting on the toilet a little long, I might think to myself, hey, you know what? I can make 10 extra phone calls right now that would make a difference in my performance. I can check in on clients, I can ask for referrals, I can call new clients, prospects, and I can really help this business. Maybe you're done with your workload on that project that's going on at work, and so what can you do to make it even better or to take on something new? How can you maybe help another member in the office if they're struggling or slacking with something, and then leadership starts to recognize that Ryan's a team player and he's a leader and people respect him? There are things that you could have done. Maybe somebody comes to you, your wife comes to you and says, hey, I want a divorce. And you think, how could she do this? Why would she do all of this? And there's certainly external factors at play. Maybe she stepped out on you or whatever. That's on her. That's not on you. But are there things that you could have done differently to influence the relationship in a positive way so it would not have got to that position? And I'm not saying you need to put all the blame on yourself and not allow anybody else to have the responsibility of their decisions. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying that if you control the internals, it's not a coincidence that the externals start to play out. I mean, why do the happiest people, the most fulfilled people, the most competent people, the most intelligent or thoughtful or team players always get the opportunities? Are they happy and fulfilled because they got the opportunities? Or did they get the opportunities because they're happy and fulfilled? Because they choose their behaviors internally, which then predicts with relative certainty what the external is going to be. And the longer you pan out over time, the more likely that's true. Again, you might lose in the micro, You might get passed over for that promotion, but maybe you got passed over for the promotion because there's a better opportunity around the door, but you're ready for it because you actually been doing the work for the last 5 or 10 years. Or alternatively, what a lot of guys will do is just sit and sulk and moan and cry about why life is unfair and why they don't get the opportunities everybody else does. What can you do about it? So let's move into that. What do you do about this? What do you do about this self-betrayal? What can you do right now? I'm talking the next 5 minutes. I'm going to give you some very simple exercises. Okay, so number 1 is I want you to make a list today of everything that you know you've needed to do. Everything. Don't rule anything out. Conversation with your wife, conversation with your kids, calling the school to talk with them about something, volunteering to coach one of your children's sports teams, following up with a client, making a prospect call, asking for a referral from somebody, asking for a conversation with your boss about your performance, sharing and articulating your wants and needs in a relationship that you might have. Maybe it's, I need to go work out, or I need to do meal prep, and I need to cut out the sugars or cut out alcohol or drugs or whatever it might be. But I want you to make a thorough list of all the things that are just looming around that you've just been sitting on for days and weeks and months and years and maybe even decades and haven't done. Make that list. I want you to make a second list. So that's 1, all the things that need to get done. Number 2, or all the things that you've needed to do, excuse me. Number 2 is a to-do list. Today, what needs to get done today? For example, I needed to do this podcast. So last night I was thinking about it because I'm a little behind on it. That created anxiety for me. I didn't sleep as well as I should have or could have because I was thinking about this. I procrastinated. But now here I am doing it, and so that was on my to-do list. I've got to make a couple of calls to the bank. I've got to call my attorney. I've got to call the state of Maine for some documents. I've got a bunch of things here because I write this out every single day as well. And I've got a busy day today. I've got to write a few checks. So I've got a lot to do today, but I have a system for doing that. And so I've got my to-do list. Now here's what I want you to do. So you've got 2 lists now, and that should take you half an hour, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You can add to that if you think of things throughout the day, but that should take you about 20 minutes. Now what I want you to do is I want you to pick 1 item from the first list, just 1. Maybe your wife said something to you last week or earlier this week that was really bothering you, and you never addressed it. And you don't want to bring it up now because you don't want to rock the boat, but it's still eating at you. It's still bothering you. Guys, that is agitating you, whether you realize it or not, and you're probably also treating her differently because of it. Maybe it's talk to the boss. I mean, I gave you a bunch of examples, but just pick 1 and do it today. Just commit to doing 1. You don't need to do all 10 or 20 or however many on their list. Just do 1 of those things. All right. The second thing you need to do is on the to-do list, choose 3 of those things to do today. I need to work out. Good. Get your workout in. I need to cut out processed sugars. Good. Cut out processed sugars. I need to call those 5 people today. Good. Call those 5 people today. That's it. I promise you, if you do those 4 things, the one from the first list, which is the things that you know you've been needing to do but haven't done, like the put off type list, 1 from those, and then 2 to 3 from your to-do list. If you do those 2 things today, you're going to win today. You're going to feel better. You're going to be energized. You're going to be excited. You're going to be happy. You're going to feel proud of yourself. And that's going to carry over. When you get home, you're going to be excited to see your kids. You can actually give your kids the time and attention they deserve because you know you got it done at work. You can actually have a conversation with your wife about how her day was because you're not worried about how crappy your day was because it wasn't. Maybe you can be intimate with your wife that evening for the first time in a long time because you're not as stressed or frustrated or contentious and you're not treating her the way maybe you have even subconsciously, and she likes that. It's not a really complex equation. It's just do what you know you ought to be doing. And there's ways that we can come up with systems and tracking all of it. And we'll talk about that. And we have talked about that. But at the end of the day, guys, I do not want you to betray yourself. I don't want to betray myself. I do every day, by the way. Some of these conversations that I have with you guys are just as much, if not more, for me than they are for anybody else. I am afraid of having conversations at times. I procrastinate. I get lazy. I get bored. Sometimes I'm manipulated. Sometimes I'm manipulative. But we all know what we ought to be doing. And I know that at the end of every day, when I put my head on that pillow, I feel so much better. When I was true to myself, when I avoided self-betrayal, and when I did the work that I've been putting off and did the work I know I should be doing. Now, the last thing I'm going to give you, so I gave you 3 things. So number 1 is make a list of everything that you've needed to do, that you've been putting off for years or months or days or weeks or whatever. Number 2, write out your daily to-do list. Make the calls, have the conversation, et cetera, et cetera. Number 3, pick 1 from the first list and 2 to 3 from the second list and get that done today. And then the 4th thing I want you to do is at the end of every evening, I want you to get a journal or a notepad or pull up a word processor on your computer. And I want you to document how you feel after having done that, relative to not. How do you feel about the conversation? How do you think the conversation went? How do you feel about working out? How do you think the workout went? A lot of people, when I talk about journaling, they want prompts. Like, oh, what are the prompts? Just talk. Like, you don't need a prompt to talk. How do you feel? That's it. That's your prompt. How do you feel the day went? How do you feel personally? How do you feel inside? Are you happy, mad, sad, glad, angry, upset, joyous, fulfilled, elated? How do you feel? And why do you feel that way? That's it. How do you feel and why do you feel that way? And I'll give you one other tip on the journaling. Write it from the perspective that either you in the future will be reading it because you probably should, or that at some point your children will. And if you do that, I think what you'll find is that you'll be more insightful. At least I do. When I think about one of my boys or my daughter getting a hold of my journals, I want that to be, I don't want to sugarcoat things, but I want that to be a accurate and truthful source of relevant insight and information about how they might be able to live their lives a little more effectively. So I hope that helps. So you've got your marching orders. I'm going to give you a couple additional resources. Number 1, if you go to orderofman.com/battle ready, that's going to help you with the to-do list side of things. It's also going to help you identify goals and objectives and things that you can be doing on a daily basis to achieve those goals and objectives based on a vision that you will write yourself. And we'll give you all the exercises to help you write that vision for yourself. And that can go in your journal. And then the other one is, so that's orderofman.com/battle ready. And then the other one is just go to orderofman.com and sign up for our dispatch. Our dispatch is our weekly email that we sent out. And I always put an article in there that's pertinent and relevant to what might be going on and what we're thinking about. And it also recaps the overview of the podcast from the week. So if you happen to miss one, we'll give you an overview, and that way you can choose to or not to listen to one that you may have missed. So that's it, guys. These are the perils of self-betrayal. And if you're feeling anxious, frustrated, angry, upset, contentious, it's likely that there's some self-betrayal. Even if it seems external, it's likely that it's internally a betrayal of who you are and who you want to be. All right, guys. I hope that helps. Let me know. Shoot me a message over on Instagram or Facebook or X. I'll get those answered for you. I'm pretty good about responding, specifically on Instagram. I'm very active over there. So respond back if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, or ideas, and keep getting after it. We'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.